back to Reza's book, There Is No Reza But Reza, I mean, there is no God but God. And in his book also he says about Aisha, of course, the notorious child bride of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, who according to Bukhari, the Hadith collection considered most reliable by Muslims, was 6 years old when Muhammad was betrothed to her. He was 51, and 9 years old, he was 54, when he consummated the marriage. Bukhari says this several times in the course of 9 volumes, which is an indication that it came from several divergent traditions and was multiply attested. Yep. And that being the Hadith collection that Muslims consider to be most reliable, that has extraordinary weight, and thus has led to the low marriage ages for girls in Muslim countries. One of the first things the Ayatollah Khomeini did when he took power in Iran, Reza Aslan's native land, was to lower the legal marriageable age of girls to 9 in imitation of the Prophet. Khomeini himself married a 10-year-old when he was 28. The problem of child marriage here again is not just about a lecherous 54-year-old man in the 7th century, but because he is the excellent example of conduct, as David said, this is something that makes people suffer today. And so in No God But God, Reza says, Aisha was 9 years old when betrothed to the Prophet, and while Muhammad's union with a 9-year-old girl may be shocking to our modern sensibilities, his betrothal to Aisha was just that, a betrothal. Aisha did not consummate her marriage to Muhammad until after reaching puberty. David, if Muhammad were to hear Reza Aslan say this, how do you think he might respond?
We wouldn't even have to go to Muhammad. We could go to some of his modern followers who are familiar with what's in the Hadith. And if you start trying to distort the life of Muhammad, man, they might start calling him an apostate. He'd be in all kinds of trouble unless it's to whitewash.
Yes.
Unless it's to whitewash jihad.
War is
whitewash
deceit,
Muhammad.
said Muhammad.
Yeah, but this would be absolutely ridiculous. Everywhere we turn, Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan Abu Dawud, wherever we turn, Aisha was 6 when she was betrothed. You find a few that say she was 7 when she was betrothed, but they all agree that she was 9 when the marriage was consummated. Precisely. So, and you want to read some?
I have some.
Of the sources?
In fact, what I want to reinforce though is also 2 things though. When we say she's 6, that's going by a lunar calendar.
Yes.
We're not going by a solar calendar. So from if you're using a lunar calendar without calculation like the Jews do, that means what they consider 6 would have actually been younger. She would have probably maybe been 5, and then when Muhammad sleeps with her or consummates the marriage, to use a more appropriate term, she would have been maybe 7 and 8. So 6 and 9 are from the perspective of a lunar calendar. To make it even more troublesome for non-Muslims who are hearing this, according to the traditions, Aisha was still playing on swings and with her dolls when Muhammad, who was reported to have been 54 years old, again, if we take into consideration the lunar calendar, let's say 52, 53, she was still playing with swings and with her dolls when he took her home and slept with her in order to consummate the marriage. Let me just read 2 for the sake of time. Sahih Bukhari, Volume 5. So I'm giving the reference for the people who want to go back and check this out for themselves. Sahih Bukhari, Volume 5, Book 58, and I'm going by the old numbering. It's number 234. They've updated this translation, and they use a different numbering system. But you can actually find this online, the older version with the older numbering. Number 234, narrated Aisha, the Prophet engaged me when I was a girl of 6. Nothing about 9 here. Maybe I'm misreading it. Maybe it's a typo, right? Maybe it's a misprint. We went to Medina and stayed at the home of Bani al-Harith bin Khazraj. Now, again, it's a lengthy hadith, so let me just skip to the relevant parts. Later on, my hair grew back because she had fallen ill, and my mother, Ruman, came to me while I was playing in a swing with some of my girlfriends. I was playing in a swing with some of my girlfriends. She called me, and I went to her, not knowing what she wanted to do to me. So she was even caught off guard. She caught me by the hand and made me stand at the door of the house. I was breathless then, and when my breathing became all right, she took some water, rubbed my face and head with it. Then she took me into the house. Now watch this. Watch what happens here. There in the house, I saw some Ansari woman who said, Ansari means helpers from Medina, who helped Muhammad, best wishes and Allah's blessing and a good luck. They're praising her for what's about to be done to her. Then she entrusted me to them, and they prepared me. Unexpectedly, she wasn't even expecting this, poor girl. Unexpectedly, Allah's apostle came in to me in the forenoon And my mother handed me over to him, and at that time, I was a girl of 9 years of age. Now remember, she's playing on swings. She's out of breath. She doesn't know what's going on, and Muhammad comes upon her unawares and then takes her home, and then we know the rest. Now the final one, where it says she was still playing with her dolls. This is Sahih Muslim, Book 8. Sahih Muslim, Book 8, number 3311. Number 3311. Aisha reported that Allah's apostle married her, now this one says 7, when she was 7 years old, but now watch this. And he was taken, and it's supposed to say she, it was a typo. She was taken to his house as a bride when she was 9, and her dolls were with her.
Now, Sam, what's the significance of saying that her dolls were with her?
Yes.
Is there any significance other than the fact of, she just happened to be carrying something at the time?
According to Islamic tradition, playing with dolls and playing with things that have images are forbidden, except for girls who are prepubescent. Ibn Hajar, in his commentary on Bukhari, actually uses this as proof that she was prepubescent, because if she had been mature, she would have been forbidden playing with dolls.
And by the way, Hilleli and Khan actually inserted that commentary into their... This is Hilleli and Khan. What greater translators are there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They translated both the Qur'an and Sahih al-Bukhari. They put that commentary that...
in fact, let me read it. If you want, I got it right. It popped up for you.
Right.
Sahih Bukhari, Volume 8. See, we're giving you the actual references so you can go back and see if we're lying. And Reza, please, we're not great scholars, so please call in and correct us, please. Sahih Bukhari, Volume 8, Book 73, number 151. Volume 8, Book 73, number 151. Now watch this. Narrate Aisha, I used to play with the dolls in the presence of the Prophet, and my girlfriends also used to play with me. When Allah's apostle used to enter my dwelling place, they used to hide themselves, but the Prophet would call them to join and play with me. Now, in parentheses, the translator provides the following comments. The playing with the dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it was allowed for Aisha at that time, as she was a little girl, not yet reached the age of puberty.
So, if I'm to put all this together for Reza, since, even though he's a great scholar, we're the one quoting his sources. We're the one quoting all the sources showing that what he says is wrong. So if he's a brilliant scholar, wow, we must be like
geniuses,
yeah,
right?
absolute geniuses.
Albert Einstein right here in the flesh.
Now notice what we have. Aisha says, I was taken to Muhammad's house to consummate the marriage when I was 9, and my dolls were with me.
Yep.
We know from Islamic history that playing with dolls was forbidden. They wouldn't apply it to young girls. They wouldn't apply it to prepubescent girls. They let little girls continue to play with dolls. Once they reach puberty, sorry, now you have to understand, you're not allowed to play with dolls.
So Reza actually specifically says that Aisha, the marriage was consummated after she had reached puberty. That is specifically contradicted in the hadiths we've been discussing. We have to take a break at this point. We'll be right back. Give us a call. We'll be right back after these important messages. Okay, well, we were discussing before the break the fact that Reza whitewashes and dissembles about the marriage of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, to a prepubescent girl. And Reza explicitly says that she had reached puberty when the Islamic texts, the core Islamic texts that are authoritative for Islamic belief, say just the opposite. Even the Qur'an itself allows for the marriage and even the divorce of a prepubescent girl. In chapter 65, verse 4, it says, and those who no longer expect menstruation among your women, this is talking about the rules for divorce. And so what you do is you divorce the woman, you say you were divorced, and then she waits 3 months. It says if you doubt, then their period is 3 months. And that is, you wait 3 months to see if she's pregnant, and then the divorce can be final. But then it goes on to say, and also for those who have not yet menstruated. In other words, the divorce rules are the same also for a prepubescent wife whom you are divorcing. Now, this is explicitly connected to Aisha, is it not, in the Islamic tradition?
Yeah. In fact, many people may not be aware, Sahih Bukhari not only collected hadiths, but he had subheadings for particular sections of the hadith. Now here what I'm going to be reading is a translation of Sahih Bukhari done by Aisha Bewley. Aisha Bewley, her translation of Sahih Bukhari can be found online. So I'm encouraging people to go online, type in Aisha Bewley, B-E-W-L-E-Y, and her translation of Sahih Bukhari, and you're going to find the following. This comes from chapter 68 of her English translation of Bukhari, chapter 68, book of tafsir. Now here it has a subheading concerning the tafsir of Surah Al-Talaq. Talaq is the name of chapter 65, and it's a subheading explaining 65:4, where it says that those people who have married prepubescent girls and want to divorce them, after they're divorced, those girls have to wait for a period of 3 months. Now let me read the example given to demonstrate a girl who was prepubescent and got married off, while a minor hadn't reached puberty. Mujahid said that if you have any doubt regarding 65:4, means if you do not know whether she menstruates or not. The iddah, the waiting period of a woman who no longer menstruate, and those who have not yet menstruated is 3 months. So clearly the passage is talking about minors. Now how does this tie in with Aisha, the child bride of Muhammad? In chapter 70, book of marriage, same translation done by Aisha Beauty. Chapter 70, book of marriage, it says the following. A man giving his young children in marriage. Did you catch it? Young children, not mature women, not women who have reached puberty. Young children in marriage, by the words of Allah, that also applies to those who have not yet menstruated. Now, Bukhari is citing 65:4, don't forget it. He cites 65:4, and then Bukhari goes on to say, and he made the iddah of a girl before puberty 3 months. It is related from Aisha. Did you see the example he gives? After citing 65:4 as an example of a prepubescent child, young children, minors who haven't reached puberty. After mentioning that, he cites Aisha, who says that Muhammad married her when she was 6 and consummated it when she was 9, and she was his wife for 9 years. Can the evidence be any clearer from the authentic Muslim sources that Aisha was a child, a young child, a minor who hadn't reached puberty? Could it get any clearer?
So think about what's going on here. Reza says, and let me go and read what he says about the relationship with Aisha. While Muhammad's union with a 9-year-old girl may be shocking to our modern sensibilities, his betrothal to Aisha was just that, a betrothal. What have we read in the Muslim sources? Wrong. She was taken to his house for consummation.
Yes.
Aisha did not consummate her marriage to Muhammad until after reaching puberty. Not what Aisha says, right? She was taken to his house while carrying her dolls. And by the way, 9 years old, come on. I mean, there are weird cases where you can reach puberty before 9. Aisha hadn't. She was still playing with her dolls. That was not allowed for girls who had reached the age of puberty. And we've seen the Qur'an itself allows sex with prepubescent girls. But watch how he concludes here. Aisha did not consummate her marriage to Muhammad until after reaching puberty, which is when every girl in Arabia, without exception, became eligible for marriage. What's the custom of the time, Reza? The custom of the time is once you have reached puberty, you are eligible for marriage.
Exactly.
But we look at the Muslim sources, both the Quran and the Hadith, and we find, no, you can have sex with a girl before she reaches puberty. So once again, Muhammad is going against the customs of the time, just like he did with actually killing someone during the robberies. Muhammad here is, in the Quran, is allowing sex with prepubescent girls, and Muhammad, as if it weren't bad enough to just allow it verbally, actually did it himself. So by saying this was the practice of the time was that you had to reach puberty, then guess what? Reza's God and his prophets are worse, morally, than the pagans of Arabia. Just have to say it.
And I want to add something that oftentimes is not raised and it's neglected, but I think it's just as important. Many people don't realize that the Quran expressly prohibited any of Muhammad's followers, or anyone for that matter, to marry any of his widows. And I'm going to read that passage. Chapter 33, verse 53 of the Quran. 33, verse 53, it says, "Nor is it right for you that you should annoy Allah's apostle, or that you should marry his widows after him at any time. Truly such a thing in Allah's sight is an enormity." Notice what it says here. Don't even think about getting near his widows when he dies. They're off limits. Now understand why I say that this is quite tragic, especially for Muhammad's widows. Remember what Aisha said. Muhammad consummated the marriage when she was 9, and she lived with him for 9 years. That means she became a widow at 18. And because of this command, she was never allowed to remarry, have a husband or children. but remained in that condition because of Muhammad till she died in her late 50s, according to the Muslim sources. And yet Muslims want to convince non-Muslims that Muhammad was a mercy unto mankind. Now, for the life of me, do you see any mercy and compassion in what Muhammad did to all of his widows, including this child bride, who he left as a widow at 18, and because of this command was never allowed to remarry or have children of her own? Where's the mercy in that? Maybe you guys can help me see it.